Are you moving forward or are you just going in circles? One of my favorite quotes is from Helen Keller, and she was asked if there was anything worse than being blind. And her message was being able to see, but having no vision. So many of us are running blind because we are not clear on the vision that we have for the life that we want to create. That is what we are talking about today on our show. The importance of using our vision to drive our motivation, to drive our passion, and to drive our action. I'm Clara Capano, and this is Clarity in Action. Welcome to Clarity in Action. This is the show where we have real conversations that are going to challenge your perspectives and drive real action. So if you are tired of holding back and you're ready to make bold moves, this is the show for you. Join us as we are going to take you from confusion into clarity. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of Clarity in Action. And this is a very special one for me because I get to have not only one of my dear friends, but one of my greatest mentors here with me today. And so much of who I have become is because of this amazing man. So Larry Kendall, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Clara, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your show.
Yes. Well, so much of who I've become and what I've been able to accomplish came from our early years together and you helping to guide and unlock greatness inside of me. And one of the things I really want to talk about today with you is the idea of vision. You know, you really have been on the forefront of creating an amazing system, primarily for those in real estate, although it really pertains to anyone. And a lot of the backing for the power of this is the fact of vision. You know, your vision in creating this system called Ninja Selling was all about having a system to allow people to run a better business, run a better life, but also change the real estate industry. And I would love to start off by asking, what was your moment of clarity that led you to this vision?
You know, what was interesting, the moment of clarity for me came in the early 90s in a workshop that was led by a friend of mine. His name was Paul Cordes. He was a training manager at Hewlett Packard. And he had us do an exercise which really profoundly changed my whole direction and provided me that clarity that you're talking about. A little bit of a background. We started our real estate company in the 70s. My goal was really to help people do very well in real estate. And we developed some systems along the way to do that. And but also I went to college to be an architect. And I had this love of architecture and design. So our company had a brokerage business, but we also had a development and a construction business. We were involved in both. I loved the construction design side of it because of the architecture. And Paul had us do an exercise where we drew a timeline. And we were to recall the first thing we could remember as a child. The first thing I remember was I was probably 2 years old and my mother was getting me dressed for church. And I don't know why that came up for me, but that's what I remember. And then he said, follow along this timeline and above the line, put anything that was one of your best memories or best moments when you felt the greatest. And below the line would be anything that was a low light for you, where you felt, frustrated or afraid or alone. And do this timeline. And what I discovered was above the line, my greatest moments was when I was teaching. Every day I was either the student or the teacher, either learning something or teaching something. And below the line, the worst things were all around development, which fighting with the planning and zoning board or with the building department or whatever. And my moment of clarity was this: I should stop trying to develop buildings and start trying to develop people. That's really my calling. That's why I'm here. And we shut down our construction company. We shut down our development company. I got fully engaged in training and teaching. And within 12 months is when I taught my first Ninja Selling class. And the rest, as they say, is history. So.
Wow. What a powerful exercise. And again, talking about bringing you clarity, just putting it right there. This is what brings me joy. This is where I really excel and where I want to be spending most of my time, and then how it worked from there. So when you're working with your people, whether it's in real estate or in other industries, How critical is getting clear on our vision in our success in both life and business?
Well, I think it's a very it will accelerate your life. It'll accelerate your business when you become more clear and more focused. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people have never really even had that thought. They get up every day and kind of drift through life. Take each day as it comes. And I think that the minute you can become clear on a vision, what is it that you want in life? Why are you here? Accepting the fact that you're here for a reason. You're not here by accident. What is your purpose for being here? What is your purpose for being? And having that level of clarity will maximize not only your own life, but the lives of all the people around you.
Yeah, so true. You brought up this concept of drifting. And I know in some of your talks and classes, you talk about the dangers of being a drifter. Talk to us more about what you mean by being a drifter and how drifting through life isn't the right way to serve yourself.
Yeah, I first heard that term from Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich. One of his later books, which I would encourage everybody to read, is called Outwitting the Devil. And the devil for him is as he says, it's not a being with a forked tail and so on. It's the negative side of energy, and that people who are drifting are real susceptible to the negative side of energy, and that the devil basically preys on people who are drifters. They don't have a purpose. They don't have a reason. They're just drifting, and they're very susceptible to the negative energy of what's going on in the world. And so, having goals, being clear on those goals, having clarity, very very important. And I just notice a difference between people that have the goals, are clear on their goals, and the ones that don't, that are drifters.
Definitely. One of my very favorite quotes that we use in Ninja Selling is one from Helen Keller, where she talks about she was asked if she could think of anything worse than being blind. And she said, yes, being able to see, but having no vision. And through my role as being a coach with Ninja Selling, an instructor, and I am just astounded as to how many people really don't have a clear vision and they are drifting or they're a little bit lost. So if there's someone out there who feels that they don't have a vision, what are some things that you encourage them to do to start the process? You gave the example of the timeline exercise, but are there other things that you encourage people to get them connected with what their why and their vision might be?
Well, I think it's easier to be a drifter today because there's so much more distraction today. The distractions of the media, the social media, et cetera, to the point that some people get up each day and their goal for the day is to be entertained, whether it's entertained with social media or entertained, and they really haven't thought about it. They don't have goals. And so I think the first thing is to just the acknowledgement of that, recognizing the kind of world that we live in, and how it can be a challenge to have goals, to have a vision, to stay focused on that vision. And I think having that awareness is step number one. One thing that I've done for quite a long time is what I know is that consciously I process information at about 4,000 bits per second. Non-consciously, my brain processes at about 40,000 bits per second. So the non-conscious is a very big processor. One thing just a routine that I have is each night, right when I go to bed, right before I drift off, I focus on my goals
Hmm.
and my vision. And what happens then is while I'm sleeping, my non-conscious mind is problem solving basically at 40,000 bits per second, figuring out ways to achieve that vision. And it's interesting. Not only do I wake up the next day with ideas, but I wake up the next day with focus and with, you know, my non-conscious has been processing the vision all night long at 40,000 bits per second. I think that's one way to help people not only stay on task, stay on the vision, but also to manifest the vision.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do that, because it does get into that non conscious brain who creates the filter. We talk about the reticular activating system in Ninja a lot and how it really helps to find those solutions. I remember a few years ago, somebody once asked me, what was more important, or what I felt was more important, motivation or discipline. For me, I find that when I know my why, that's when I know my motivation of why I am doing something. That's what creates the discipline for me. I would love to get your thoughts on how you feel about the correlation or difference between motivation and discipline.
Well, I think they're both important. What came up for me, Clara, when you were sharing that was a comment from Tony Robbins. And he asked, I was in one of his workshops, and he asked the audience, he said, which is more powerful, motivation or action? And he believes that action is more powerful, that if you can just get started,
Mm-hmm.
once you get started, then the motivation tends to build. And so they really tie together. I always remember him saying that. So,
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. He knows a few things.
yeah, I'd say so.
I
He
want
was one of my early mentors. I met him actually early in his life. He was 24 years old at the time. Look at him today.
I
So,
know. It's incredible. Yeah, you gave him one of the early opportunities to have him come and speak at your company. So that is definitely something to be proud of having, and knowing that you helped to unlock the door for him as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, he's done all right.
He's done all right. Yeah, he's done all right. I want to switch over to the idea of leadership, because one of the things that I really respect that you do is you coach leaders on driving the bottom line, not by, focusing always on the goals, but by really helping their team members know their vision, and using that as a way to drive them, with their actions. And rather than just setting goals as far as numbers, how much do you want to make, how many deals do you want to close, you really connect it back to, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And I would love to have you speak a little bit more to that, on how, as leaders, understanding the why, understanding the vision behind our team, how that can really drive production.
Beautiful, Clara. You know what comes up for me, and you're familiar with this because you teach it, is Simon Sinek's three circles from his book. Start with why. The outer circle is what we do. Well, what we do in my career is we sell real estate. The middle circle is, well, how do you do that? Well, we do it using the ninja selling system. But the real question is the middle circle, which is, why are you selling real estate? Why are you doing this? What is your why? What is your motivation? What gets you up in the morning? What keeps you going? It can't be just about another transaction or a little bit more money. There's got to be something bigger, there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times what I find is when I ask somebody what their why is, it's such a big concept to so many people that it can actually lock up their energy. They kind of get a funny look on their face, like, I've never thought about that. And they think it needs to be a big answer, like I'm going to bring about world peace, or I'm going to solve climate change, or something big. It doesn't have to be big. And what I share with people is your why can be progressive. You can start out. I remember when I first got in real estate, my big why my first year was to put food on the table and a roof over our head, to prove that I could be successful in real estate and take care of my family. That was my why. I wasn't worried about world peace. I was worried about, the basics. And then, you can work your way up that, Maslow's hierarchy. So I went from, wanting to survive, to the next level was wanting to thrive, to the next level was wanting to have financial freedom, to the next level was wanting to live the dream, be able to do what I want, when I want, where I want, etc. To the point that at the top then is the significance of, how can I change the industry? How can I change lives? How can I make a bigger impact in the world? So I think your why can be progressive, and I think everybody needs to know where they are on that ladder, and what's where are they now? What are they trying to do? What's the next step for them?
Yeah. I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think that enough people don't allow themselves to revisit their why and understand it could change. I know I was working with my sister a few years ago. She ran a business for about 18 years. That became so much of her identity that when she closed it down, she completely lost her why and was stuck. She was extremely paralyzed for a couple of years, because she needed to know. And like you, my why in my 20s was more about making money Now in my 50s, it's more about legacy. And I think we have to give ourselves the space and the freedom to sit down yearly and really revisit that. And if it's time to pivot, give ourselves the grace and the freedom to do that with it. So I think that was really great. And I appreciate you sharing that. What do you think is the biggest hurdle that people have in creating their why? You talked about maybe the idea that it doesn't have to be big and maybe simplifying it, but maybe not even in defining it, but in living in alignment with it. What do you think is our biggest hurdle in allowing ourselves to live in alignment with our vision?
Well, I think it starts with number one, having the vision or having the why. Maybe as we talked about it, start small. You can build on it. Then I think the biggest, as I mentioned earlier, I think one of the biggest challenges is the distractions. For me, what I do to avoid the distractions, to stay on purpose, to stay on my why, is and some people kind of laugh about this. It's popular to have a word of the year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people talk about their word. What's your word of the year? Maybe the word of the year is vision, or maybe the word of the year is focus. And I think the word of the year is really great. Well, people ask me, my word of this year is routine. And they go, routine, that's kind of a boring word. Well, what I know is this: if I follow my routine, I'm going to stay on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I have a certain routine that I do every morning. And as long as I do that, I know that my mental health, my physical health, my focus on my vision, my goal, my why, I'll be consistent. And I think that this gets back to your discussion earlier about the importance of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's not enough to have the why. You've got to have the discipline to do the activities that lead you to the why.
Absolutely. Yeah, my word of the year is consistency. So very similar
Oh,
to
there you go.
yours. Like minds, think alike.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, Larry, this has been an amazing conversation. And I just want to also recognize you. Earl, in one of the things that we do in our ninja selling classes is we actually walk our students through the exercise of creating a life list, although we call it a passion list, and really connecting it. And I remember the first time that I did that with you was in 2009. And on my list was write and publish a book. It was, be more of a coach. It was to do more public speaking. It was to create a show. And it's really cool to see so many of these things. I have several of my books, as well as a ninja selling book right behind me here on my bookshelf. I'm here doing all of this. And if anybody ever questions the power of vision, I'm a living testament. And I just have to say thank you so much, because you helped to unlock that. And I know it can be sometimes a blessing and a curse, because I'm always striving, but I'm so fulfilled in what I do because it gives me that fire in my belly to show up with purpose, with intensity in a good way, and to know that I'm living in alignment. And you are changing so many lives by helping people. And it's fun to see how this little exercise for you of your timeline has brought you to the legacy and the impact that you're delivering to so many each and every day. And I would love to ask you, because I know that you still have so much going on and you're nowhere near done with your life chapters. What is Larry Kendall working on now? What is next for Larry?
Thanks. Well, I'd like to say two things. First of all, what's next on my list, top priority for this year? I want to finish my second book, which is a leadership book on how to ninja leadership, basically. So I'm working on that now. My goal is to have it to the publisher by the end of this year. What I also want to say is, what brings me great joy is to see you, Clara. I remember the first time I met you a long time ago, and I said, "Wow, this lady has the goods." And you had all these goals, and a lot of people that I run into have goals, but you've executed on those goals. You've made them happen. You've written more books than I will. Okay. You have a TV program. I don't, but it brings me great joy to see your success. And my job is to help bring out the best in people, help them leverage themselves. You're now making a difference for others. So this warms my heart to see how you've gone from being successful to now helping others be successful. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. It all comes full circle, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
when
it sure
we all
does. It sure
work on
does.
that Think about the ripple effect we all can have. So I have one final question for you today before we say goodbye. And I love to be able to show the transition not only of our vision, but of where it brings us. And so I would love to ask you, sitting where you sit today, learning everything you've learned up to this point, how do you define success for yourself today?
Oh, I think success is everybody has their own definition. For me, it's the achievement of worthwhile goals, which gets back to what we've talked about for this whole program, which is having a vision, achieving the vision, having another vision, achieving the vision, and having it fit into some sort of overall context of trying to make the world a better place, trying to help people on their path achieve it. And so that's my definition.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again. Thank you not only for being here and sharing your value and your wisdom. Thank you for being in my circle. I have so much gratitude for you, and I know that so many others feel the same. And it's been a true honor having you here today. Thank you.
Clara, thanks for the invitation. It's an honor always to be with you. Every day with you is a gift.
Thank you. Well, that was truly special. Being able to talk with Larry, I feel like he has just been such a huge part of my life since 2009, and he has seen me grow. He has pushed me, he has guided me, and I always just find so much value and wisdom when we talk. Some of the things that I wrote down is I love that timeline exercise. And I think that this is so easy. And I really encourage all of you to do it is again, just write down on a timeline, all the memories that you have. But I think the powerful thing, any positive memory, any experience that you have that raises your vibration and brings you joy, put on top of the line, and anything that doesn't bring you joy, put it below. And you'll probably see some patterns like he found that the things that bring him joy are more in the teaching. So I think that's a great thing. If you're ever feeling stuck, look at that because maybe you're not living in the realm and giving enough time and focus to the things that truly bring you joy. I love when he talked about, are you just drifting? When you're just going aimlessly, you're drifting through life. Let's live life. Let's not be drifters out there. And then he talked about the idea that your why is going to change over time. So let it change over time. You change, you evolve. It doesn't mean that it's going to change every year. It could, but again, really connecting with it because that why becomes your compass and you can use it for the decisions that you make and how you go in to each and every day. Your vision is your vision. Just like all of us can define success differently, your vision is yours. So know it, own it, and let it guide you. When you are clear on your vision, nothing will stop you. Thank you for being a part of today. Please make sure to like and review the show. And also let's make sure to share it because there could be some other people in your world that are out there drifting. And this could be the episode that changes them and helps to bring more purpose and passion to their life. I'm Clara Capano, and this has been another episode of Clarity in Action.